It's Thursday night. It's the night of the week when everybody's talking about a movie. And they go, hey, did you see this one? Hello and welcome. It's us again. It's Thursday night. We're talking movies.
What? You didn't start it by saying, how'd you do? I see you've met me. Come on.
Sorry that you're the person that does the voices. So
That's true. I should have done it.
I'm the voice and you're the talent. And speaking of talent, this week we're doing the Rocky Horror Picture Show for musical Mania Madness. Mayhem is in there.
I don't know. You change it every week.
That's kind of the thing I do. It's kind of the fun thing I do on this show.
I've stopped even trying to remember what it's called because I know next week it'll be something even crazier.
We like to do alliteration on the show, but I can never remember the order. If you notice here, the man next to me is a friend of the show, Brian Highgate. Welcome to the show. You are our guest this week.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Brian,
he's a long-time listener, first-time caller.
Yeah, exactly. Brian's been here since the beginning. Brian has been active in the chat. This is the movie he wanted to talk about, but also I think, right? This is a movie you know lots about.
We'll find out, I guess.
Okay, but also he's like the first like actual fan, I would say, that we've had on. I guess Tim as well. Tim's a fan. Tim goes out for us for the show as well. But Brian, thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us here on this lovely Thursday. Wait, it is Thursday, right?
It is, yeah. Well, see, that's my Thursday night alarm.
It's Thursday night. You know what time it is? The time to watch the fucking movie with the friends and the boyos, sometimes girlos. At any rate, like I said, it is musical mayhem. No, musical madness mayhem.
What?
I'm trying to. Steve's overtired. I'm trying to appeal to his overtiredness. So
he's trying to match my low energy.
Yeah. Usually, if I say some ridiculous shit, like if you're wide awake, you're like, you gotta stop. But I feel like while you're overtired, we're gonna gel. It is, of course, that time of the show where we go around and we sort of talk about our history with.
Have we said what movie we're doing yet?
Yeah, the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
The Rocky Horror Picture Show, one of the best movies ever made. Period. Nobody can beat it.
I can't believe that you loved this that much. Not that I didn't think you were.
Well, I've seen it before. This isn't the first time I've seen it.
I know, but I didn't think you were gonna. I thought you were gonna be like, this movie blows chunks or something. Like I thought you were gonna.
This movie rules.
This movie
is very special to me and very special to a lot of people in the queer community. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Susan Sarandon's boobs. Okay, here we go.
A brief history.
I thought you had a new sound that was Perv Corner, and you were going to be like, welcome to Jason's Perv Corner.
Welcome to Jason's Pervert Corner. Did you notice how Susan Sarandon had no top on for the whole movie?
No, but I do want to talk about Brad's bulge. Brad's
bulge
people.
Is massive also. Asshole. I think we have to say asshole for Brad. And I was talking to Cass earlier. Friend of the show was on the show last week, in fact. And she let me in on some of the little nuances. And if you say Janet, you have to say slut. I don't know if I like that much. But if you say Brad, you have to say asshole. So anyway, try to keep that up throughout the show. This is, of course, our history with the show, movie. And what we do is we talk about our history with the movie. It's pretty straightforward. This week, I'm going to make it a habit to start with the guest, I think that's a tradition I start right now. So
yeah, Brian's seen the show before. He understands the format, I think.
Yeah, sure. Brian, why don't you give us a little bit of your history? I hadn't assumed that you know everything about this.
I don't think that's a fair assumption. So my first viewing of this movie was probably 4 or 5 years ago. A friend of mine was in like one of their cults meeting things. I think she might have dressed as magenta. I don't know. But she kind of was talking about it, and so I went home and watched it. And I watched it on my own, so it wasn't the full experience that you get when you go to one of these
You
cults.
didn't get hit with a piece of toast.
But I did really enjoy it, and yeah, I'm happy to revisit it and talk about it with you guys.
That's great. So you saw it about 5 years ago for the first time. Is that the first? You said you saw the live production, or you went to a.
No, I saw it at home. At home.
Okay. Have you seen it? Have you seen it live with the audience participation?
No, but I definitely want to. I think you
Yeah.
should.
I think that if
It's fun.
I think that if it comes up, we should do that. I think this squad get cast. Basically, our Wednesday movie crew should start doing stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely love to go see The Room with all the gimmicks with you guys.
Yeah.
I think that would, or any Neil Breen. Any Neil Breen
Yes,
movie.
there's a new one this year. I'm excited.
We're gonna probably cover it. So we'll take a break during a
It's
month.
part two of the Kale saga or whatever his name was. The Twisted Pair. They're back.
The old Twisted Pair. Great. Okay. Steve. Fucking makes me laugh. Also, I just learned that if you actually call Janet a slut before she becomes a slut, you have to say, "She's not a slut yet. Give her a chance." To be answered by, "We gave her a chance last week and she blew it." So that's fun. I pulled up all the little things, so I'm gonna try to pepper those throughout.
Yeah, some of the things that are shouted are a little bit outdated, but it's all in jest. It's all in good fun.
Right. I think this is the only appropriate time in the history of cinema where transvestite is used, and it's kind of okay. Anyway, we'll get to that.
It's questionable nowadays, but it's I think the status of this movie is that it's ridiculous.
If Brad Pitt,
anything to be taken seriously in this movie should not be taken
if Brad
seriously.
Pitt had called somebody that word in like California, you'd be like, no. But if Frank-N-Furter says that word in that context, then it makes sense. And also the nomenclature has changed drastically. But that is not the point of the show we're at. Steve, why don't you give us our history, since you are the buff.
A brief history? A brief history?
A brief history? Wait a second. You sound an awful lot like the person in that.
No, I'm just really good at impressions.
Oh, that's true.
You should hear my Christopher Walken. No, I'm just joking. It's
That's
really bad.
The only one you can do.
It's the only one I can't do.
Yeah.
So this movie was floated around TV a lot when we were kids. All of us, we're all sort of similar ages. And I was told that I'm not allowed to watch it. So obviously it made me want to watch it. But my mom, when we would be driving around and any song from this movie would come on the radio, which was usually around Halloween, that the stuff would be playing nonstop. She would turn it up and she knew every word and she would sing it. And I was like, well, why are you allowed to watch this movie and I'm not allowed to watch this movie? And why you clearly love it? It's like, what the hell? So I avoided it for a while because I was told it was a scary movie, which it's not at all. I mean, I guess if you're homophobic, it's scary. It's terrifying.
There's a jump scare, technically, and the effect is so bad. It's like an actual stage
It's
play.
like goofy jump scare.
Yeah.
But I saw this movie when I was probably about 14 for the first time. It was playing, I think, on Showcase. Our lovely Showcase in Canada is sort of like the what's the equivalent in the United States, like Cinemax or something.
I think literally Cinemax, because I think that Showcase would play those movies that were like Diary of a Call Girl and all those shit.
Yeah, it was like all the Verhoeven movies would be on there. It was the channel that played the movies that would be like, the bad kids watch these things, so you shouldn't watch them. Yeah. I wasn't allowed to be your friend as a kid, Jason. Or I wouldn't.
Don't worry, I'd only make it about 2 minutes into the movie.
Yeah. And then, it had this drastic sort of shift in my mind as to like what sexuality is and what it means to be okay with it, and like how different people can like different things, or different people can like the same things, and people who don't like each other can like similar things. but not each other, or they love each other. It was just like a stew of madness to me. But I was like, but I love this stew. It tastes so good. Give me more stew. So I saw it at a pretty young age, and it was sort of when I was like, figuring out my own self. So it was pretty impactful, and it lives in the sort of the library of special movies in my mind. I don't watch it very often. I maybe once a year, maybe once every 2 years, but when I do watch it, I always enjoy it and I smile the whole time. And there are things, it's weird because I watched it again today, and my opinion of certain things has changed drastically from when I was a teenager. And the actions of certain characters in this movie may not have had an impact on me when I was younger, but it does have a different impact on me now. So it's interesting to watch it again through a different age lens. But yeah, that's my first brief history with the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Time is fleeting.
Did you? Let's do the time warp again. Did you? Did your parents or your mom end up letting you watch it, or you said you had to do a little sneaky?
I don't think that it was a permission thing. I think it was on TV, and I was like, oh, this is that movie that The Simpsons references all the time, and my mom sings the songs from, but I'm not allowed to watch, so I'm gonna watch it.
Nice.
It wasn't a really rebellious thing. It was just kind of like, why? Let's see what this is about. And I thought it was going to be scary because it plays at Halloween and it's got a castle in it, a haunted castle that isn't haunted at all, just haunted by perverts. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, and it's really. I've already said it. It's special. It's special to me.
Fantastic. As far as it goes for me, I've obviously I'm 38 years old. I've been aware of this movie my whole life. As far as seeing it, I don't know why I've never seen it. I've seen parts of it. I've seen bits and pieces. It's one of those movies that if it's on at like a party or in the background, like I'm aware of what is on the screen, but I didn't watch it all the way through until last night. And there's a bit more to that. As you know, people who watch.
So you were like, "Wait a minute, they're aliens?"
Yeah,
what the fuck?
I was literally like, "Oh, what?" From the galaxy of transvestite. What?
No, transsexual.
Transsexual. Sorry.
They're from the planet transsexual in the galaxy of Transylvania.
Right. But she is.
With the reverse, I can't remember.
I think the planet is transsexual and the galaxy is Transylvania. Yeah.
Which blew my mind. Was kind of an M. Night Shyamalan twist a little bit at the end there.
They kind of infer throughout the movie.
Throughout it.
Like Riff Raff is like, this Earthling. And he's so weird. Like he is an alien.
And Frank-N-Furter has all this weird technology.
Yes.
But I did watch, like I said, I watched it all the way through last night. And as people who watch this show know, typically I'll watch part of a movie on my lunch break. I'm glad that I put it on last night to just start it, and I'm glad that I watched it all the way through in one sitting, but I'm also glad that I didn't try to watch it at work yesterday. Like I was out of town, blah, 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 whatever. If I would have put this on at work, I would have immediately turned it off. Because this is not a lunch break movie, I believe, as you said in our chat, Steve. You're like, this isn't a lunch break movie. This is
you got to watch it through because it just goes, man. Some songs lead right into other songs, and it's just it's like a train. You can't stop it.
And also,
you gotta have a cool off period afterwards.
The overt sexuality. There isn't a lot of like straight up nudity. There's a little bit. There's
like a tiny bit.
Scantily clad men, and some nipples and some bulges, and Susan Sarandon is basically in her bra for 75% of the movie. But it's a situation where I was like, you know what? I'm just going to finish this tonight. And also, it wasn't a slog. I like had a good time watching it, so it wasn't a heavy lift to watch the Rocky
Horror
surprised.
Picture Show. This movie is celebrated globally, right?
I do. I expected a little bit of what I expected with Tommy, and was pleasantly surprised. Where even you see 1975 in the title, and you go, oh.
I mean, you do.
I do.
I never do that. You know what else came out in 1975? Jaws.
True.
The best movie ever made.
Jaws is a pretty good movie. So that with that, we'll move on to the body of the show. Dealer's choice, Brian. Do you want the body short or the body long?
Short, I guess. I don't know.
The body of the episode.
I don't know if we've actually used that one yet.
No, we usually use the sexy stripper music or whatever.
Yeah. The body of the episode. That was fantastic. I actually am going to play another song right after this just to get it out of the way, but we actually do get
The MPAA, everyone. The MPAA. Wow.
And this week it was 24,181. I'm only keeping this tradition alive because I like the sound that you made for it. Wow.
Wow.
So I watched the credits. The credits for this movie, both at the beginning and at the end, are both worth watching.
Yeah, it's cool. It feels almost like a sitcom, sort of, like
or
the character like turns and like has their name on screen.
Or the opening ones feel like a 1950s like old school Hollywood horror movie also, which I really enjoy.
I also appreciate when movies, I know it's not appropriate for all movies to do this, but when a movie puts the character name and the actor on screen so that you know what character they're playing, and you already have the name of the character in your mind going in, and you're not really confused as to who anyone is. And a movie like this where they're not constantly saying everyone's name over and over again, right?
It's like you get to read the...
it's helpful.
It's like you get to read
my dumb brain.
Program.
Yeah, it's like having a playbill, yeah.
Right down to like this, the whole movie is like in character. Like they play the 20th Century Fox sound in like kind of a rock and roll kind of a way.
It's like a piano, yeah, like a plucky ragtime piano.
I didn't. So I was actually listening out for a name drop, but what I didn't know about this is that Rocky Horror is a character in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know about Frank-N-Furter being like, he's sort of Dr. Frankenstein. And all of his creations are sort of parodies or like vaguely similar to Hollywood monsters. Like Rocky Horror is his like weird sex slave buff boy who I looked up and is in like 4 movies total. Was he just like a bodybuilder or something?
I don't know. Let's check. Yeah, he's only been in a couple of movies, and he just, I guess, either just didn't like it, maybe, because this is a pretty big credit, and he's in almost the entirety of the movie as one of the main characters, right? I guess he doesn't do a lot of acting though in the movie. He doesn't really talk. He just sings sometimes and grunts. Maybe he's a terrible actor. Who knows?
That's what I thought, because he had some lines at the beginning when he comes out of... So he's a mummy, essentially. He comes out of his mummy costume.
He was just a model. He was a model.
Okay.
That's what he was, yeah.
What was shocking, what was striking about him is, like, in the 1970s, people didn't really use steroids yet. And when he took his his arms come out first, and I was like... the amount of work he had to put into like getting that physique would have been insane. To be like big but also like sinewy, like big but also like ripped,
Like zero fat.
Yeah, like people couldn't achieve that unless you were like a strong man in a circus back then. So that was striking to me. And then when Meatloaf shows up on the scene, he's sort of like Frankenstein's monster, sort of the vibe I got from him.
Yeah, he literally even has like a cut on his forehead, the same as the classic monster. Which it's everything in this is an homage to like classic Hollywood or Universal monsters, right?
Yeah, which it's almost the perfect Halloween movie because all the songs are synonymous with Halloween, and all of like it's in a it's in like a Transylvanian style castle. Dr. Frank-N-Furter his wardrobe changes, their wardrobe changes. You see a lot of different things. You see like French prostitute right up to Dracula. And then his ghouls are ghouls, but they're just like party animals. And then Riff Raff is like Igor also. And Magenta is sort of like a zombie possessed maid, but then at the end she has like Bride of Frankenstein hair.
Mm-hmm.
And Columbia is the only one that I was like trying to connect that. Do you have any theories about who she would be in the pantheon?
I don't know, Brian. Do you have any
No,
thoughts?
like she seemed like just like a musical person, like just the musical aspect. I don't know if she's like has a horror like a B movie type analogy. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, she's referred to as a groupie, right, in the world of Rocky Horror. So she's, I guess, just supposed to be somebody who follows the band around, right? Like she isn't one of the I don't believe. I think she's just like showed up and fell in love with everybody, right?
So that, of course, was the sound for the short version of Jason's Theory Corner. Just a quick theory: she might be a lycanthrope. She's Wolfman. She's the Wolfman. She's the Wolfman. Just because nobody else was clearly Wolfman.
Yeah, you're like, by default, you are the Wolfman.
She did have those ears, like Mickey Mouse ears. Those could have been wolf ears, right?
You see?
Wow, it's all falling into place.
It's like in the Marvel like television shows where they do a classic villain, but they can't get the rights, so they do like a good enough version of it and don't call them that by name. That's the Wolf. Yeah. They couldn't get the rights for Wolfman, so Columbia's representative. That's probably the wrongest theory I've ever had. The most wrong.
But you know what? Most of your theories are wrong, so it's fine.
Well, shit. You're right. I was curious. I did make a note of this because I watched it on Disney Plus. How did you guys watch it?
Same.
Yes, I also watched it on Disney Plus. I do have it on Blu-ray though. I just didn't feel like hooking up my Blu-ray player.
Your Xbox doesn't play Blu-rays?
For some reason, the disc drive isn't working on my Xbox. I'm not sure why. I haven't tried anything other than Blu-rays though, but it keeps being like, "Is this a disc?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you know it's a disc." And I'm yelling at my Xbox, and it's like, "I don't think this is a disc. Are you sure it's a disc?" Yes.
I put it into you in the disc slot.
This Xbox like thinks I slid in a slice of bologna or something.
Yeah,
I'm trying to trick it.
So you'll all agree with me when I say that this movie looks crazy good in 4K on Disney Plus. I said to my wife watched it with me, and I said to Madison at one point, I was like, "This looks like especially the opening shot at the church. This looks like we're watching like when new movies try to make." Like old time, like make it look old timey, and I don't mean just like they're wearing old costumes. I mean they also film it to look old timey. Like it, yeah. The only difference is like people in the 70s faces were different, if that makes sense. people looked different back then. I thought that the version they used on Disney Plus is incredibly well upscaled, and I couldn't believe throughout how vivid everything was. Like a lot.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the beauty of film, right? I've talked about this on the show before briefly. It's just like when you film something on film, especially if it's a large celluloid, you capture so much more detail than you do when you film something digitally, right? So if you like look back to television shows from the early 2000s when they started filming digitally, it never looks good unless they go in and digitally enhance things, and you can always tell. It's because it just doesn't have the same quality as something being filmed on film, where they can go in and clean things up if they need to. But usually an original print is like perfect. It's like a camera, right? You zoom in onto an image that's not digital, you can just zoom in forever and the line will be clean and clear. It doesn't get pixelated because there's no pixels. It's a literal chemical burn. So it's an actual line, right? Anyway, that's why it looks so good, and that's why they can take certain things that were filmed in certain eras and make them look better than they looked back then, if they have the original prints and they're able to, transfer those things digitally.
Computer enhance
image.
I think that this movie would look cool in black and white, and I'm wondering now if there is a black and white print of it somewhere.
That's interesting. I don't know if I've ever looked that up. I'll do that while we discuss.
We discuss.
At the wedding at the beginning, was the farm, you know, like the American Gothic painting of like the guy with the pitchfork and his wife. Was that riffraff? And
so this, I was
And
wondering.
Tim Curry
this
was
too.
the preacher as well.
Was he? I didn't
Yeah.
notice this.
Tim
Yeah.
Curry is
It was-
definitely the preacher. Good eye, Brian.
I was too distracted by riffraff. I'm like, is that riffraff? I was like, first I'm like, is that Dan Castellani from The Simpsons? Is that Homer?
He's somehow the same age that he was in the 90s, but in the 70s.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. Like I didn't notice that when I was a kid at all, and now I'm watching it like for the billionth time, and I'm like, hold on. And I still didn't even notice that Tim Curry was the preacher. Now I have to look this up.
He's so tall. I couldn't help but I liked that they showed the two as the American Gothic.
Yes.
And then later, like a few minutes later in the movie, they're standing next to the American Gothic painting in the castle. I thought that was a good little nod. I also really enjoy when Brad, asshole, and Janet, slut. She's not a slut yet. Well, blah blah blah. All the things I said.
Give her a chance.
Give her a chance. The way that they're singing like very like musical, like very big, very campy, very like overacting, and the like priests and I guess their maids or like nuns are singing in this weird like kind of voice, like Janet.
Yeah, almost like they're bored or tired.
Yeah.
You know, they're just like, ugh, can we get to the good music? Like they're actually upset that, you know, they're singing a boring musical.
This lame love song that's like overwrought and just overdone.
Wow. How have I never noticed this? I'm the most unobservant person in the world.
To be fair,
It's clearly Tim Curry.
Only
only-
briefly though.
yeah, they only
we always see him briefly, and then he turns around. He turns around and faces the other way for the rest. So
Right.
so
That's
another,
weird though, right? They've been watching them all along.
That's another thing I wanted to bring up, that like they did that, which is a reference to how like multiple people play multiple people in plays, but it's also an Easter egg, which we'll get to Easter eggs in this, where you realize that when Frank-N-Furter comes and sings their first song, how they're like, I'm like in the daytime I'm a man, but at night I'm more than that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like we just saw. I want to know if it's like that in the actual stage play, but in the stage plays it's supposed to be him, or is it the thing, like I said, with the thing where actors play multiple roles? Even the main actors in plays will play multiple different roles, or you know, like I feel like it's just all very good.
That's also like, you know, it's a point of efficiency, right? But it also is interesting thematically and metaphorically,
Right.
to have somebody play two roles, and they're not supposed to be, you know, the same person.
but I also think those two roles are very similar. Like he's the priest in both cases. He's kind of the religious figure in both settings. So I
Yeah,
think
absolutely.
it's fitting with us both.
They definitely, they follow him as they would a preacher for sure. And they treat his process and sexuality like it's the word of God.
And also, it's like a sort of a trope that preachers will lead a double life, and the double life will be like cheater, gambler, nasty boy.
Yeah.
And in this case, he's a transsexual from the planet Transylvania.
That's true.
The galaxy. I actually looked it up to see if they have named a galaxy Transylvania, because I thought it would be funny. Because, you know, like astrologists and astronomers, they get
weirdos.
kooky and crazy with stuff, right? Like, then they're nerds, so they will like weird stuff. And you got to think that somebody who's naming galaxies has seen and loved this movie, and would be like, "We're calling this one Transylvania. This is where Frank-N-Furter's from." I would do it.
I would do it.
Yeah.
I would definitely do it.
I would also name a galaxy like the Boba Fett galaxy or something. Yeah, an idiot.
I'm
This
sure
is the
that
Star Wars galaxy.
I'm sure that lots of astronomers have named things unofficially, but there's probably like a board they have to get these by. And if you're like, I want to call it Transylvania,
maybe.
and they're like, why? It's like
I
Rocky
think
Horror.
that if you discover something astrological, you get to name it. I
Yeah.
think that's how it works, right? Like if you discover a comet, you would get to name the comet.
If you're an
as long
astronomer,
as long as you're not naming it something horrifying,
right?
like super problematic.
Just a series of racial slurs. If you're if you're an astronomer,
Jeez.
let us know in the chat.
How does this work? If I start looking under the sky and I see stuff, do I get to name it?
But science fiction and the opening credits song is fucking great. It's a great. So yeah, we kind of blew past the opening credits, but there wasn't much more to say. Just the mouth, the iconic mouth.
That's what's his name's mouth? Riff Raff. What's the actor's name? Oh, I know it. He's also the writer and director of the movie.
I thought it was Columbia's mouth, but not her voice.
Jim Sharman.
Or something. I had this really funny moment where the first time
did he not direct it? Sorry, I thought that Riff Raff directed it, but I think he just wrote it.
He did write it though, right?
Yeah, Richard O'Brien, I believe is his name. He wrote it with the director. Yeah. He's also in the Dungeons and Dragons movie, the old one.
The old one
from 2001. Yeah.
With,
he plays like a
Williams
weird
brother.
He plays like a weird the leader of like a thieves guild or something strange, and he like makes people go through death mazes and stuff. And he's basically just playing Riff Raff, but in medieval times.
The first time I heard Columbia sing, she sounds exactly like the opening credits of Pee-wee's Playhouse, which is Cyndi Lauper. Mm-hmm. And then I thought I had an epiphany. I was like, oh my God, is this Cyndi Lauper? Forgetting that Cyndi Lauper was like 20 in the early 80s. Mid 80s. She would have been a child baby at the time, not a 30-year-old woman. But her performance in this movie is incredible. And I love Magenta. I love Magenta's look. The design for all the characters is really cool. And I really wanted to dial down into how the movie, like Tommy last week, felt like they turned a play into a major motion picture, where this feels like they just did a play and filmed it on good cameras. Like it almost feels like when they do a live musical on like NBC, you know?
Yeah, and it's almost like you can feel where the audience would be sitting if it was a play. You know, it is very much filmed like it's a stage play. And I think that's by design because they wanted it to have that sort of vibe to it. But yeah, like almost every set piece, you know where the cameras are because that's where the audience would be sitting kind of thing, you know?
Did you notice that like Repo definitely jacked the setting for their ending from this? I know you hate it when we say that, but that one was a little bit like, oh, they were writing Repo, and it's
Repo is one like clearly like inspired by this movie.
Heavily inspired.
Yeah, I mean to the point that what's his name, the guy the guy from Buffy, I can't remember his name. He literally has played Frank-N-Furter like multiple times in his career on Broadway, and I'm sure that they probably saw him performing that and was like, let's get him in this. Let's make him the Repo Man.
Yeah, it's good. It was and also the grave robber reminded me of Riff Raff a bit too.
Yeah, they have a sort of similar vibe. Though he's not the narrator. The narrator is, I think his title is the criminologist. So he's treating this like it's a crime. Like the whole movie is a crime, which is quite funny to me. But I do like that it just pops over to him every once in a while during songs, and it starts with him, but
sometimes he's the narrator, and sometimes he completely breaks the fourth wall.
Yeah, I mean everybody breaks the fourth wall in this movie. Like Frank-N-Furter just looks directly in the camera multiple times and is like, gross.
I've got another Rocky Horror audience participation for the narrator. Whenever the narrator Charles Gray appears, the following lines and variants are appropriate. He's got no fucking neck. A chicken stepped on this man's forehead. Your mother should have fucked a giraffe. Wipe that ass off your chin.
Your mother should have fucked a giraffe is very funny.
Dr. Scott may be booed or yell, kiss ass.
Oh, I like to imagine him telling the entire story. Like imagine you're not watching the movie and you're just sitting in his office and he's acting out the entire movie. Yeah. He's singing all the songs and like jumping on his desk and stuff.
It's like the narrator guy from those Dark Pictures
Yeah,
games.
yeah.
Is what it kind of reminded me of a little bit.
Exactly.
For sure. I like that he also has charts and stuff that he pulls down to like explain the dance moves. Like, this is how you do the dance. You take a step to the left and then a jump to the right. Yeah, so I guess we can go through the plot a little bit more, but yeah, like they go to a wedding and then
Actually, hold on, Steve.
Oh,
Brian, why don't you explain I want to hear Brian, why don't you explain the plot to the Rocky Horror Picture Show? Just a short in summation.
A short in summation. So basically it is following a couple's journey through a night of horror where they have a car breakdown and have to experience the horror of a night at Dr. Frank-N-Furter's mansion. That's basically the summary.
That's pretty much a quick synopsis of the plot. To go a little bit further, I think Steve, you were about to.
I was just going to start us on the journey of talking about each scene as we go.
We're up to they make it there because they sing the song, they go on a drive, car breaks down.
Yes, they're not married, but are they on their honeymoon?
So this is something
they're engaged.
They're engaged. And I think specifically they did the thing you're supposed to not do. This makes them shitty characters in my opinion also. They watch their friends get married and leave, and then he proposes to her like minutes later, and it's like super uncouth to like propose at a wedding. It's also bad.
The wedding was over. They were gone.
I think it's because they are like epitomes of social pressure. Like those two characters represent societal norms and expectations, and that's why
I disagree with you, Jason. I think it's fine if the wedding's over and everyone leaves and then you go into a graveyard and propose amongst the dead. Which I also think it's so funny that there's a billboard in the graveyard. Like, it's just, I don't know visually it's very comedic to me. Like, this is so funny. Just like no respect for the dead. Let's just shove a big advertisement on top of some decaying corpses. Who cares? I did also like the charm of how shitty the graveyard looked. Like it almost looked like it was off of like an Ed Wood set or something. Yeah. The gravestones looked like they were made of styrofoam.
Like they're visibly made of styrofoam.
Yeah, like they could be blown over very easily.
That's great. Yeah, I didn't pick up on the billboard. That's a good catch.
It's so big that you didn't see it. That's how big it is. It takes up almost the entirety of the screen behind them.
The one that I was focusing on, the like out of place thing, was at the end when they're at the pool and there's that like Radio City mural behind them. I couldn't take my eyes off that, but I didn't notice the billboard.
Yeah, it's I think it's almost like a township sign or something, but it looks like
Denton something and an arrow.
The home of happiness, I think. Yeah, it's basically like a welcome to the city of Toronto kind of sign, but it's just like 4 feet away from a gravestone. But also, like, I don't know, the graves, maybe they weren't that bad. I'm trying to remember it now. Like, were they bad, or was it just the advertisement in the background made them look fake because of how off-putting it is to see a giant sign in the middle of a graveyard?
Was it a physical sign, or was it like a matte painting? I know we're kind of dwelling on it.
No, it's just a big old sign. I think it's real too. It doesn't look like they like added it there. It's like, who knows?
That's I want to go back and just like watch that part because I don't know how I missed a giant. I was just so focused on they're just over the top. Like I at least knew what was gonna sort of happen in the castle. I didn't know that they did this number at the start that makes them, like what Brian said, that they're the epitome of like societal norms. They're the most normal fucking people that are going to be corrupted infinitely in this building. But really, I think it shouldn't be seen that they're corrupted. I think it's more so that they get to finally let loose and experience some joy, because everybody ends up bisexual in this movie.
I think it's important that they be that, right? Like it's very important that they be the type of people who are rigid and conform to society, because to have somebody who is wild and crazy or, off the beaten trail going to this horny castle. It wouldn't be as impactful, right? The point of impact is that they are squares, basically. They're boring people.
That's
and this is the first time that anything interesting has ever happened to them in their entire lives.
That's the word I was looking for, is square. Because in the 70s, like, this movie is clearly written by hippies.
Oh yeah, Riff Raff is a total hippie.
Yeah. About two squares who get lost in the woods. They have a series of funny events during that drive too, where like these people on motorcycles keep driving by, and they're like, "Well, I wouldn't be caught out here on a motorcycle in this rainstorm. What if they, they're just asking to die," kind of thing. Very look right at the camera, and they keep driving by, and it feels like there's elements of this movie that feel very horror. Like even modern horror, but the payoff is always so goofy and campy and funny.
Exactly. It's it's obviously by design, right? Like they're setting you up for it to be the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it's like, no, you're not going to get massacred. You're just going to get fisted, maybe. by Frank-N-Furter.
It's somewhere between Rob Zombie's House of a Thousand Corpses and Rob Zombie's Monsters.
You love Rob Zombie so much, it's so weird.
No, I don't. I don't.
You
like
talk about him every episode
because it's not that I like him. It's because I hated House of a Thousand Corpses despite everybody loving that movie, and I definitely hated The Monsters.
I don't think everybody likes that movie.
They're the same.
I sure don't.
They're the same movie, in my opinion. I've talked about it already.
Yes,
but this movie fits somewhere in there.
I think fair comparison though. It has the I haven't seen The Monsters, but like from what I have seen of it, it looks very much like it's inspired by the Addams Family and this kind of vibe, colorful and weird, campy and strange angles, crazy makeup. The makeup in this movie is so good,
and that makeup is fantastic. Yeah.
Like, look at Tim Curry's. If you're listening to the audio of this, you can't see, but Brian has Tim Curry's face right behind him. Like, look at that makeup, man. It's very drag queen, very Ursula from The Little Mermaid, but it's so good. Like it makes his eyes look amazing. Like every time he does eye acting in this movie, you're like hypnotized, and you understand why both of them wanted to bone him. You're like, yeah, this guy has magic powers. He has alien sex magic.
That's okay. When we get to the part that is unfortunate, that's sort of my debate for that. But which makes it worse almost. I want to say though,
it's not good.
It's not great.
It's very problematic.
His facial acting in this movie, like he's so feminine, and he doesn't really ever do that again. Maybe Pennywise a little bit has similar mannerisms because
this is a very unique performance to him.
Is a little bit more.
If you look at his recording of the music in Fern Gully, he's very Frank-N-Furter-y in the recording booth, but I don't think he did any motion capture for the Ooze Man.
There's Texas. Actually, in Home Alone 2, there's a little bit of him trying to be like straight and narrow, but you see him. There's cracks that are Frank-N-Furter.
Don't think they turn him into the Grinch in one scene there?
Yeah, and you realize how much he looks like the Grinch. You're like, wait a minute. He looks so much like the Grinch.
If they made a live-action Grinch in the 90s, it would have had to have been Tim Curry.
They did make one, and it's Jim Carrey.
No, that was in the 2000s.
I mean, in
like 1993.
I'm going to check when it came out.
It was like 2002 or something, right?
Let's find out.
2002, 2003. That's my guess.
It came out in the year 2000.
Is it a 90s movie? Is it?
I would consider it a 90s movie.
It was probably mostly made in the 90s then. In that case,
yes, it was filmed in the 90s.
That's why I consider the year 2000 to be like It's like how 1990 and 1991 still had fucking neon everywhere and great aesthetic. I mean, not unlike this aesthetic in my background right here.
I don't know if Tim Curry could pull off the same physical characterization of a cartoon character the way that Jim Carrey can, but the face, man, they should have face swapped. You know, all the close-ups are Tim Curry and all the body movement is Jim Carrey.
I mostly meant if so. You see those old fan castings of like the Avengers, you know, like Michael J. Fox as like Spider-Man and stuff. Like that's what I'm sort of thinking of, like an alternate universe. If they had made a early 90s.
No, I think he would have been great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those also infuriate me beyond belief. I don't know why. When I see like TikToks of people being like, my fan cast for this X-Men or whatever, and it's just like the opinion of a person that I don't care about. And
that's all we had when I was.
And you're like, ugh. Who let this guy on TikTok?
When I was
Ban his account.
when I was a kid, that's all we had. We had Wizard magazine, people fan casting Captain America, and it's just fucking.
Yeah. I remember doing it when I worked at EB because none of those movies had come out yet. I think it was like Iron Man was just about to come out, and all I had to do was all day long was talk to another nerd in a video game store. So it's like, can you imagine if like Will Smith played Neo in the Matrix? That would have been sick. And now I'm like, no, Will Smith is terrible.
Those movies would have been completely different if that had happened.
Yeah, I think he would have been fine, but I think that Keanu Reeves rules and has proven to all of us that he's the most human being on planet Earth.
I don't think there'd be John.
He just
Wick
knows how to be a
movies
human being.
If Keanu Reeves hadn't played Neo, I think John Wick never happens.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah.
Also, this is the third episode in a row that we're having a thunderstorm.
Yeah, man. We summon the thunder. We're the thunder gods.
It's so weird. The simulation is fucked. Donald Trump is getting arrested for the fourth time, like right now.
Did you see Rudy Giuliani's headshot or his mugshot?
Fuck, man. We don't like to bring politics into the show, but man, things are going down.
It's exciting. I'm so happy.
All those shit heels from the last 6 years are going to fucking jail.
Yeah, I was playing Texas Chainsaw Massacre last night, the video game, because I love killing. And this guy was talking to me. He's from Austin, I believe, or Houston. And for some reason, he started talking shit to me about Justin Trudeau. He's like, yeah, well, how's Justin Trudeau treating you up there? I'm like, well, I mean, all politicians have issues, but, you know, at least Justin Trudeau didn't take a dump in his pants on live television.
Yeah. Just because I don't have a helmet on, just because I don't have a sticker on my vehicle that says fuck Trudeau doesn't mean I want to suck his dick. You know what I mean? Like,
Jesus.
Because ironically, they all want to. Speaking of dick sucking,
this horny movie. But anyway, I just like
definitely
I think
blows
exciting.
a guy on camera in this movie. With slurping sounds.
I think that is like as problematic as the scene is. I do like that he tricks Bun into thinking that they're the other person. It's funny that he goes in there dressed as Janet and he goes in there dressed as Brad.
I can kind of see it from both sides.
And impersonates their voices perfectly. If I might add.
Yeah. I can see how...
that was actually done by the like Susan Sarandon. It wasn't Tim Curry actually impersonating the voice.
No, I know, but in the context of the movie, he walks in and just has Susan Sarandon's voice, and you're like, oh my god, this guy is crazy good at impressions.
I think the biggest problem is it's a little like the Revenge of the Nerds movie, you know, where he's like, go on in and pretend you're me or whatever. He goes in and pretends he's the football player. And he has sex with the girlfriend. It's rape.
It's not as problematic as that because he essentially gets consent, but he's real handsy about it. You know, it's feels like forced consent. It also seems like maybe he does have some sort of like mind control power,
which I was saying like kind of makes it worse. I don't really want to dwell on this too much because it's bad. It's bad. And I haven't done a lot of reading. I don't know what like the people think about it, but I feel like it's probably seen unanimously as bad, right?
Yeah, I don't think anybody's like, that rules.
But I think he as a character is a bad character. Like he's killing people, serving meatloaf to people.
Yeah, he's the villain for sure. He's the first villain. That scene is so funny where he's like... Who wants some more meat? And they all realize
they're eating meatloaf.
They're eating meatloaf.
The man.
The myth, the legend. Also, stay tuned for next week where we do we do like one of his first movies and one of his last movies.
Yeah,
there's something.
He's the king of cameos. That man.
There's something like between like one of his. It might be between this. And Pick of Destiny, that there was a giant chunk where he never sang on screen. These might be the two movies, but I feel like he did stuff after this in movies before he became just like a rock star.
But just going back to that point, I think that it's amazing the charisma that Tim Curry has, that he turns this horrible character into the most likable one in the film. Like
yes.
It's kind of...
to the point that you walk out and you forget about like the problematic nature of his actions, and you're just like, he's so good at doing everything he does. Like, I love him. But it's also like because of that charisma, you're also able to see why people would become infatuated with him and follow him like a cult leader. And when he sneaks into your room at night, rather than saying "get out of here," well, I mean, they both say "get out of here," and then they both fall in under his spell and are just like, "Yeah, okay, just don't tell Brad, just don't tell Janet." And they both have sex with him within like the course of an hour.
And they both have the exact same set of lines. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like, what have you done to Janet? Nothing. Do you think I should? And he says the same thing twice. Do you think I should?
She fights a little harder, but I think that's only because of the amount of time. Like that scene is a little bit longer, and then she just goes and he does the same thing with Brad. And definitely blows that man. I had to look up if Susan Sarandon actually sang this, and not only did she sing it, but she had pneumonia while she was.
Oh, I knew that actually.
Singing. Yeah. She is a songbird. I didn't know that Susan Sarandon was a fantastic singer. Also, what's the Barry Bostwick? What's the guy's name?
Who plays Brad?
Who plays Brad? Yeah.
Yeah, Barry Bostwick.
Barry Bostwick is a prolific actor, very similar to like a Samuel L. Jackson, where he's been, not as big, but he's been in like a million things. But if you don't know who
what we would call a journeyman actor,
a journeyman actor,
been around
right?
forever, and it's his job, and he does it every day.
But he was most notably the mayor on. I always think it's Just Shoot Me, but it's the one with Michael J. Fox and then Charlie Sheen, where they're
Spin City.
Spin City, yes, thank you. And I watched the shit out of that show when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, and he was extremely funny on that. And I didn't know he was Brad in this, and I also didn't really know if Susan Sarandon was Janet. And when I saw them on screen, I remembered that I knew that about her, but I had forgot that Barry Bostwick was Brad, and it was just delightful. It was delightful to see these two very recognizable actors, and Tim Curry, and then the other people on this cast besides Meatloaf are kind of like just also probably journeyman actors.
Well, a lot of them are, they're stage actors, right?
Right.
Like they sing on Broadway and things like that. Like it's not all actors, and most of them doing plays and stuff. Which is respectable in its own right, but it's not as they're not as recognizable because of that fact, right? Not as many people go see plays as hop on the boob tube,
the old boobs tube. Speaking of boob tube,
I have this. Oh my god, the police are coming! They know we're talking about Rocky Horror Picture Show. It's illegal to talk about this on the internet
because we live in Florida, apparently.
Yeah,
I wonder if that
movie
movie
probably be arrested for playing this in a theater in Florida.
Yeah.
I had this weird, I don't know what it was, but when I was a kid, I watched this movie a couple times, not as much as I've watched it in my adult life. But for some reason, there was this large gap of time where I didn't watch it, and I thought Christopher Reeves was Brad, and I don't know why. And I don't know why. Did he play Brad at some point in some version?
Maybe on because I think they did this as like the thing that I was referencing earlier, where they do just like a live version of it on TV. The ABC Saturday night movie.
They did one at Casa Loma actually. Well, when I was working there, they were filming it. They did. I don't think it was live, but it was. They just essentially made like a remake of the movie in Casa Loma. Never seen it, but I would be interested to see it because I'm very familiar with Casa Loma, and it would be fun to be like, I've been in that room. I've been in
that. Wait, no, stop. We're gonna get DCMA'd. Okay. My bad.
Jeez. Jason really wants to do the time warp. The time warp is one of those songs that I love, but I hate that like every white person wedding you go to, they play it. It's always played at white weddings.
It's actually funny because I'm watching the new season of Only Murders in the Building, and they're making a musical in it. It's very musical centric, and they're like, you have to have the showstopper song. You gotta have the showstopper, and Time Warp is like, and then Tommy has a Pinball Wizard, and it's very.
Yeah, I think that and Sweet Transvestite are the two songs that everybody knows the most, because they play them everywhere, and not just in the movie. That it'll be referenced. It'll be played in other movies. I think the Time Warp's more so. But like most of the music in this movie is great. but there are a couple of songs that I just absolutely love.
Well, what are your unconventional favorite songs? Because I really enjoyed Science Fiction, and I really enjoyed the part of 6 days or whatever. It'll take 6 days. But that middle
7 days.
7
I
days.
love In 7 Days I'll Make You a Man. It's my favorite song.
But the middle part where Meatloaf becomes unfrozen and fucking just starts reaping havoc.
Yeah.
So good. And Columbia's so in love with him. So good. How about you, Brian?
Yeah.
Do you have a...
I like them both, but yeah, I don't know. I like the whole thing. I don't really have a favorite, really, but I enjoyed it all.
How diplomatic of you to say.
Mm-hmm.
But I do enjoy Time Warp. Time Warp is probably my favorite.
Time Warp is...
Everyone.
Yeah, it has such a good opening. It has like a really good sort of build to it. You know, it gets you excited before it even gets to like the exciting part. You're like getting ramped up with that like guitar riff. Just
well, the narrator
love
first.
it.
Yeah, the narrator explaining the things is also fun.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh shit, is that happening right now?" Because you would expect that to be like later in the movie, but it's like the first big number.
Yep.
It's also the transition. The transition from the societal norms to Crazy World.
Yeah. You know, we've got all the motorcyclists. I'm a motorcycler.
I'm a motorcycler.
Vroom vroom.
Vroom, vroom, buddy.
And you know, they're passing them, and you know, you see them a bunch, and then when they break down and they're on their way to the castle, more motorcyclists are coming in and going to the castle, and you're like, oh, the Transylvanians they're all bikers, sick. And then you see them in the house, and they're all, you know, it's like the most sort of diverse group of people that you could potentially like put together.
They
and
look
it's
like the extras from the Love Shack music video, the B-52s.
They look like what
Love Shack music
when you
video.
go into like the Beaver, like
right.
a queer safe bar that I used to visit before the pandemic. That's what like the patronage would look like. You know, it'd be different age ranges, different races, different sexes, and everybody was friends, and it was nice. It was beautiful. You know, you go to like a club or whatever in downtown Toronto, and everybody looks the fucking same. They're all dressed the same. They're all the same height. They're all wearing the same dresses and shoes and colognes and suits. And it's disgusting. And then you go to a queer bar and you're like, yes, everyone's different. Everybody is doing their own thing. And it's so much more nice.
The best example of that even is like they cut to the wide shot of the audience, and there's like an old lady there too, you know, like that's how diverse this crowd is.
But it's also, you know, I think it's meant to evoke the feeling of like, you know, this community exists, and you know, in the context of the movie, they're aliens, but like that's what being queer is. You're alien to what is normal, you know, to most people. And the fact that, you know, they exist everywhere and they can look like anyone, and you don't know, and like that's what the Transylvanians are, I think, meant to represent, is like the queer community, right? And it's nice to see that, even though it's sort of, you have to do a little bit of excavation to get to that point, and it's so heavily covered in the music and the makeup and the exuberance of Frank-N-Furter, you know, kind of steals all that away, and you just kind of get the clips of them, but you're seeing it, and you can see yourself being in there. You know, you could see yourself being one of the Transylvanians wearing the suit and the weird glasses and doing the time warp and having fun and loving it.
And
I think the one sad part about this, though, is that at the end, like, it kind of, that world, it's saying, oh, we visited it for a temporary time, but then now we have to go back to the society that we're used to. So it's kind of like, yeah, like
there is a sadness to it for certain. But that's kind of like what it feels like when you.
That's when you leave the Beaver at
right?
4 o'clock in the morning.
Exactly, and then you have to go back to work on Monday and pretend like everything's normal. Like,
and also during this sequence, like you start to see what's going to happen. They get a little bit of foreshadowing with Brad, who's like, I kind of like what I'm seeing here. And I think is Janet the one that says we got to leave. This is unhealthy.
I think they're both kind of like, ugh, and then you know, by the end they're completely immersed and they're part of it, you know, and they realize again, it like the problematicness of it all is like, is it of their own volition, of their own decision, or are they being, you know, sex magic,
I mean,
sexy space magic.
Don't threaten me with a bisexual pool orgy, which was one of my favorite scenes of the whole movie, where it's just there's nothing else to do with these characters but just make them fuck in a pool for
everybody just start
minutes.
kissing in the pool.
Yeah.
Listen, if you've never been to a kissing pool party, I recommend it.
Tell you,
great. It's a great time, especially if Tim Curry is there.
Kids out there, if you're ever invited to a pool.
But it's also like, both Susan Sarandon and Barry Bostwick are like conventionally attractive people, right? Like they sort of embody what you think of when you think of handsome or beauty, or
like Susan Sarandon looks the most normal attractive woman out of them. Like Columbia and Magenta are obviously attractive women, but they sort of represent different looks. And
it's almost like in Batman Forever, like the Drew Barrymore and whoever the fuck was the other one, how they're like drastically different, but they're essentially at their core they're the same.
But I didn't like when they take Brad's glasses off. He's fucking like, not that he's not a good looking man with the glasses on, but I really got that. Like, you see his eyes pierce.
Yeah, he's got really blue eyes.
Very attractive young man.
Yes, he's hot as heck.
He's hot as heck, and he's got a giant fake bulge.
I mean, in my opinion, hotter than Rocky Horror, to be honest. But Rocky Horror's got the muscles, he's got the legs and the groin, and he eats raw eggs.
Look at his legs. So like, Frank-N-Furter's
so
definitely
weird
a
he's
leg
running
person.
around. I don't know if you watch Frank-N-Furter during that whole sequence where he's running around the room. Frank-N-Furter's just chasing him and like kissing his calves and stuff. Like, it's so creepy and weird. But it's funny.
But it's objectively like, it's funny. The movie, I found myself thinking about how this movie was extremely ahead of its time most of the time. There's just some antiquated.
Richard O'Brien, I believe he was like, in the circles of like John Waters and stuff, right? Like they kind of shared the same spaces, and that's what they did. They would try and do things that were shocking to squares, the normies, but also exposing a world that most people wouldn't even know existed without stuff like this, right? Like, to look at this movie, you're like, wow, look how crazy all this stuff is. Imagine this happened in real life. And Richard O'Brien's like, it does happen in real life. You just don't know about it.
There was another. We talked about that famous interview from Divine and John Waters, but there was one thing we didn't mention, and there's the part where they had scratch and sniff cards that you got when you went to see Pink Flamingos, and this feels a lot like that sentiment of just like, we want to gross out the squares and we want the people who are chill, the hippies and the peoples on the fringe of society to feel comfortable and to have put something out for them. And I think musical theater in a lot of ways is that there's no straight coded fucking musicals, like
yeah.
think of musical theater as a whole, and it's very much like, it's not meant for the regulars, but ironically the regulars fucking eat it up,
Yeah, they love it. It's the whole world is sort of put on display, and like, the people who are part of these productions, they don't necessarily dress like Dr. Frank-N-Furter on the weekends or after work, but they don't live the same lives that regular people do, in terms of like what they find entertaining. This is just speaking from my own experiences, I guess. Like,
hey, you can't see me from the waist down right now, okay?
Yeah, you're wearing
I got fishnets on. I got a garter belt. Yeah. Like the Dr. Everett at the end. He's like, oh no!
Oh, he's transforming. He's the werewolf.
Yeah. Oh man, if we want to talk about some of the great effects, some of the great practical stuff they do in this movie, like all of the laboratory set pieces are cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. That whole set is like, it has that sort of backrooms feel to it. I know that's kind of like on the out at this point, but for a while the
liminal space,
liminal space stuff was very. It has that sort of dreamlike quality to it, but it also reminds you of when you watch old movies when they go into like an insane asylum or whatever, and there's like an operating theater. How it's got that sort of tiled feel, but it has like a pinkishness to it, which I believe I've read somewhere that shade of pink in particular makes people docile. So like they'll paint mental institutions and prisons this specific shade of pink that like essentially destroys your will to live.
I think that might also be in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I think they talked
it's
about
like
that
a real thing. That's why they do it, right? And so like it exists in these movies because it's a thing that exists in real life. I think in not Split, Glass, I think we talked about it a little bit as well, how that certain shades represent certain things within that movie, but they also exist in the real life for specific reasons. It's kind of interesting. I recommend people look into it because I don't know that much about it, but I know enough to know that it's interesting.
So yeah, all the weird doodads in their lab, and then the main thing. Here's something I had to look up. Did you notice that when they put all the stuff?
You looked something up? You're not just gonna give us a theory?
No, I because this is more important than my dumb. Oh, this character's a lot like Cloud. I think that they ripped off Final Fantasies for this.
God.
No, when he's making Rocky Horror, he dips all the color, like he puts all the colors. I thought he was gonna electrocute the thing. He didn't. He subverted my expectations. Instead, he put all the colors of the rainbow in, and then it created the tank becomes like a rainbow.
Rainbow tank, yeah.
Like a rainbow flag almost. But the rainbow flag didn't become synonymous with the LGBT community till 1978. And I'm wondering if it's because of this movie, that just showing the colors that way in the shape of a flag, the creator of that sort of, it's not really a movement. It's more of like a person was like, it's kind of like how the upside down triangle was a symbol for lesbian for a long time. I don't know if it's still seen that way. I did notice that Frank-N-Furter has a triangle on their smock, which I thought might have been like a queer coded LGBT thing for that as well. Like there's a lot of symbolism that wasn't necessarily symbolism yet in this, that I'm wondering if
I mean it could be, because I know that, wasn't it like Harvey Milk or something like had the flag commissioned, and like this movie was big in the queer community and in general, but it absolutely could be. I don't know, I would have to do a little bit more deep diving into the artist or whatever who designed it, but it could be, man.
Could be, because like
it's a good flag. Love that flag.
It's a great flag. It represents a lot.
It's on my Sea of Thieves ship.
Good. So all those 12-year-olds can come and just
they
drop
do. They come and they call me horrible names, and then I sink them.
And then you sink them. And then they sleep in Davy Jones's locker, and Davy Jones is like, I like butt stuff. Yarr. And then this movie like became important to me because like I am, I'm straight or whatever, but I consider myself to be sort of in that universe, like in that world.
I mean, you're really good friends with me, so you have to be.
No, I know, but I don't want to be like, I
wouldn't like you.
I'm an ally. I don't want to be that guy. I just have a long history of like.
Yeah, I don't think that true allies call themselves allies.
No, I have a long.
Nor should they be allowed
history
to.
of spending time in those kinds of places, like gay and LGBT.
Because they're more fun.
Exactly. But you get to know a lot of people and a lot of people's perspectives. Is
very rarely will you go to a queer bar or a queer space in general and leave at the end of the night and see two people fist fighting.
Never.
You see that. There's a bar across the street from my house that's like I can't remember what it's called, but every Sunday and Saturday it's jam packed, and it's clearly not a bar for me, and every single night that there's a party happening, there's one happening right now, I can hear
you
it.
Text me about these dipwads fist fighting each other.
Sometimes I'll send pictures like, look, this guy just got his teeth knocked out, holy shit. Straight people are fucked,
and that's a world that I've spent a lot of time in as well, right? And I'm I've got a calm, sort of sensitive demeanor, and the last thing I'm going to do is go to fucking clubs. And when I was single, I didn't like go fight over women and stuff, like it's so icky.
Who does that?
So
nowadays
icky.
You'll get, if you fight over women, the women will be like, get the fuck out of here. Both of you. Yeah. yeah, I have lots of theories and experiences as well, but I don't want to get too bogged down in like awkward, weird reality. So let's just talk
Yeah.
more about this.
Let's talk
About
more
this
about
alien
politics.
from the gayest universe galaxy. I wish we could all live there if that's what it's like. But I think even they, Riff Raff and Columbia, are like, your lifestyle's too extreme, Frank-N-Furter. You
And
can't
they're
keep
kissing.
doing this.
They're incesties.
I mean, it's implied, yeah, that they're.
They make out at one point.
Are they?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Not Columbia, Magenta,
Maybe.
and Frank and Riff
Riff
Raff.
Raff.
Oh,
Who are the
well,
aliens
they're-
at the end? They have a scene where they're
Yeah,
like
yeah.
kissing. We just think that they're being perverts because everybody's a pervert in this building. But then they come out and they're like, "We are brother and sister. We have to go back to our planet."
yeah. Well, it's revealed that they're brother and sister, like pretty early, not early, but like, before they have their sick costumes. Those costumes rule. I want to go as Halloween Riff Raff. Let's do
With
it.
the little curl
Yeah,
at
the
the top.
crazy hair in the back. Yeah, he has the craziest hair in this movie. It's just like, but it's like so good. Like I don't know. There's just something about it that adds so much to his character. That he has
Isn't there
no hair on top and then just like such greasy long blonde hair on the sides and back.
Isn't there a freak in one of the later Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies? In like Texas Chainsaw
There's a freak in
Massacre,
all of
like
them.
4 that looks exactly like Riff Raff.
I don't
remember
know.
a
Like
poster,
I'm
'cause-
very familiar with most horror franchises, but the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is one that I am not really well versed on, and it's because it frightens me.
It might
more
be
than the other
too. It might be
ones.
too
Freaks-
fucked for me.
freaks
now,
me out.
even with my desensitized. Brian, you've probably heard me and Steve both talk about how we've become desensitized over the years. But there's some things that still. I don't know if I can watch that new Hellraiser movie. Honestly.
Oh, that movie rules. I recommend.
Okay.
So good. I might have to put it on the pod just to make you watch it.
Okay.
What about it are you averse to?
Just too creepy. Like Hills Have Eyes give me the same ick. Just
Hellraiser.
torture and incest and chainsaws, just cutting skin, could fucking just
Right.
put me back in that mind prison that wouldn't allow me to watch a cheese ass movie like Freddy Krueger.
You're like, too scary.
Too scary, and then you watch and
Freddy's
like,
like,
he's just it's just Bugs Bunny. He actually no, he's not even Bugs Bunny. He's the fucking frog.
Yeah.
From Warner Brothers.
He even has the hat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might watch the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies just because I've started playing the video game and I want to know a little bit more about these characters that I'm playing as. But even the game is like, ugh, this is gross. This is way grosser than Jason. And Jason like folds people in half and punches their heads off, but the Texas Chainsaw Massacre people just stab you and
Just
violently stab you and love doing it.
Chainsaw your guts.
Yeah. And they eat people, I think, is like the main thing about them. They're cannibals and in the game they feed grandpa blood and I'm like, is this something that happens in the movie? I don't remember.
The titular Texas Chainsaw Man wears your like skin as a face.
Leatherface,
right?
Yeah.
Dadoy. And then I think those two, the guy and the girl, are like his like kids who are either cannibals, or they're like the kids from Rob Zombie movies where they just torture everybody.
Yeah, I was playing with some
serial
people
kill.
last night, and apparently they're telling me that some of the characters in the game are just made up for the game and they're not in the movies. And I'm like, why isn't there like a billion Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies? Why don't they just? I don't know. Anyway, I'm gonna go get some water. You guys keep talking. I'll be right back.
So let's see. Basically, we've gotten to the point. We've jumped all over the place. In my notes, I'm at the point where the question about the pride flag, we got past that. So I guess storyline wise, we're right around where Rocky Horror gets created. He has lines at first. Then he becomes a mute for the rest of the movie. And becomes more animalistic as the movie goes on.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It is kind of weird. He's like sexualized within 7 hours of his birth. It's kind of a weird.
Which is weird as fuck, yeah.
Yeah. But he has a brain. I think it's he says Frank-N-Furter's like, perhaps I shouldn't have split the brain in half and put one between you and you. Like half of Eddie's brain is in Rocky, right?
Right.
Which is why he's doing the same sort of shit that Rocky does. But yeah, it is a new consciousness though, which is disturbing. Like, ugh.
And Meatloaf's character Eddie is like, so Dr. Everett's looking for Eddie, but like he's also a creation of Frank-N-Furter is the implication.
Well, I feel like he must have died, and then Frank-N-Furter resurrected him,
And that's why he's like the Frankenstein character.
That's my guess.
And he even says something along the lines of like we had to kill him. He had a certain naivete, like, and that was Frankenstein. Frankenstein was
mercy killer.
Fully innocent. He just liked to choke things when he got mad.
Frankenstein?
Yeah, he liked to pet things too hard. I know that.
No, you're thinking of.
I'm thinking of Hey George.
What's that? What's the book? How to Kill a Mockingbird? Is that
no,
it?
the one with Gary Sinise is the movie. The fuck is that? Yeah, it's also a book.
Yeah, he kills a dog because he pets it too hard or something, and then he kills a woman because he hugs her too hard or something.
Pets her
Yeah,
too
Frankenstein
hard.
doesn't accidentally kill anybody. He kills people on purpose. But he does it because they're evil.
They're trying to throw mice and men.
That's it. Yeah.
But
Frankenstein's not the monster. Frankenstein's the doctor.
Frankenstein's
monster. Sorry, Brian.
Jeez.
You pedantic fuck. You
What
come on my show and you. I quit.
I don't know. The audience might get confused. I just want to make sure we're talking about the same people.
This is fucking 100.
I forgot to mention
story.
that Brian is a doctor of literary writings,
which is a real title.
Literature. Yeah, Frankenstein. I mean, we don't need to talk about Frankenstein very much, but I've read Frankenstein. It's the most boring fucking book I've ever read, but I got through it. It took me. I've read like 1,000-page book, I've read in like 2 weeks. And then I tried to read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. It's like less than 200 pages, and it took me months to get through it because I was so bored. There's some really good stuff in it, but it's boring. I'm sorry if you love Mary Shelley Frankenstein. I'm sure it's very special to people just like Rocky Horror is to me.
Remember they made that movie in the 90s and Robert De Niro played Frankenstein, and then they made a video game out of it for Super Nintendo somehow?
Yeah, and Frankenstein was like,
gonna meet me.
I'm a monster.
You're gonna meet me. Right. So I figured out that we're about at the point where he gets created, the titular Rocky Horror.
Right. Also, really cool. I wanted to talk about this a little bit. You talked about the color and stuff, which is a really nice effect, but also just a cool way to bring a body to life. You know, you have all these sort of familiar elements from Frankenstein and stuff like that.
Literally, Riff Raff goes to a thing on the wall and goes like pulls a lever, and you expect, but it just this thing kind of goes.
Yeah. It's cool that he's in a vat of water. I don't know what it is about it that it makes it more sexual somehow, and it's also reminiscent of like actual childbirth.
Yeah, like a womb,
like coming out of the womb, and it's just visually interesting and different. You're used to seeing electricity in a body like the thunderstorm. As cool as that imagery is, it was nice that they didn't just go into what things that you would expect to happen. They kind of subvert your expectations a little bit, which I thought was cool. I don't know, what do you guys think about that?
No, I absolutely agree. Keeps it in the theme of like a good Halloween storytelling while also subverting your expectations. Sorry, Brian, if you were going to say something, I didn't mean to
No, I agree.
Trample you.
Also cool that they're combining monsters because he's wrapped up like a mummy, and then he's technically a Frankenstein's monster homage, but give me some Dracula in there too.
The world's horniest. I think Frank-N-Furter's has like a outfit at one point that's reminiscent of Dracula. I don't know why I do that. Also, I've just been calling him Dracula for like so long, and I don't even think that's really a thing. Just my brain started calling him Dracul.
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 Dracul. I mean, in the movie, the Francis Ford Coppola movie, he's Dracula. He says it like a
Burn through
psychopath.
the witches and slam. Maybe I do like Rob Zombie.
You love Rob Zombie. We all know it.
Well, at least I don't love Avatar anymore. Remember my Avatar kick I was on for a while? I went from hating Avatar to loving Avatar.
You almost didn't bring it up this episode.
We got a Final Fantasy reference and an Avatar reference.
It's
Actually,
all the hits.
There was one Final Fantasy thing that's not a Final Fantasy thing. These probably exist in even like Dungeons and Dragons and like other fantasy lore, but he references a Triffid shooting poison at one point. And Triffids are a very prominent monster in Final Fantasy games, but I assume they're actually from like D&D or something, right? They're plants that are alive.
I assumed all those references at the beginning were just B movies that had been made.
Yeah, like it could have been like Rise of the Triffids, and there's
Yeah,
like plant
that's what
monsters.
Yeah.
This movie also really made me want to watch Little Shop of Horrors because I think that has this kind of the same vibe as this.
There's a book called The Day of the Triffids.
Day of the Triffids.
Which was written in 1951 and has been adapted for film and television. The word Triffid has become a common reference in British English to describe large, invasive, or menacing-looking plants. There you go! I learned you!
Well, I love that. I just love that.
People who searched this also searched Audrey 2 from I almost said Little Rocky Horror Shop of Horrors.
Little Rocky shit of fucks.
Ugh.
Why do we think that the film is called Rocky Horror? Like, why is Rocky Horror the center of the film and not Frank-N-Furter in terms of the naming?
Frank-N-Furter's House of Horrors. Frank-N-Furter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Because Rocky Horror himself is a character that it doesn't really have too much to do with it. I don't.
But
I mean, it is the
like
night of his creation. Yeah. He's being born. Also, the name is really catchy.
Sounds like a rock star's name.
Yeah, and it also has, the word rock is in it, and it is a rock opera. So it has I think it has like a bunch of impactful layers that went into that decision making. I don't know if it necessarily is like it's all about Rocky. That's what we're gonna call it. It's like no, it's just a sick name. In fact, they maybe came up with the name first for the show, and then we're like, let's just call this character Rocky. Why not?
Fair enough. But you could have called Dr. Frank-N-Furter Rocky as well.
That's true. But Frank-N-Furter is such a funny name for a Frankenstein reference. So good.
Yeah, it's definitely giving.
Well, it sounds like a hot dog, like the name itself
absolutely.
Sounds like a wiener, which is funny because he fucks everybody.
But it reminds me of the frightening House of Frightenstein or whatever that 60s trip out show was, which might have been in a lot of ways the inspiration for this. What the fuck was that show called? It was on.
I have no idea what you're talking about, so I can't even pretend like I do anymore. I was saying like I know what you're talking about, but I don't know at all. What are you talking about?
It was called The Hilarious. Okay, so it's a Canadian TV show called The Hilarious House of Frightenstein. And they showed it on the Comedy Network, like in the 90s, but it's a show from the 60s. And what it would be, it was like imagine if you were watching SNL, but originally came out in 1971, but it was a Canadian show. Imagine if you were watching SNL, but all the sketches were played by
Dracula
monsters. Yeah, like they were just doing like sketches, but then sometimes it would just break down into like the camera panning in and out like this with like
weird.
With trippy.
My brain just clicked, and I'm like, I remember this show too.
Yeah, like with like trippy shit happening in the background. Like it was just invented for fucking teenagers to smoke weed and have some trippy bullshit on the screen.
That's so weird that I know what you're talking about now. Because at first I was like, I've never heard of this shit. This didn't exist. Jason's making this up.
No, it was on the comedy.
Like, wait, I knew.
It was on the Comedy Channel in the 90s, like in reruns.
Right.
And it was just, I found it to be so fucking weird. I would just sit there and watch it, like having no frame of reference. And then my dad would be like, "Oh man, Frankenstein."
I love this shit. And then he got high and laughed.
Like my dad used to get up with me on Saturday mornings to watch Pee-wee's Playhouse, and we were watching it for different reasons. Like he was just baked out of his mind, and I was just like, wow, the colors.
I don't know if you're aware of this, Jason, but this is not the first movie that we've covered on the podcast with Richard O'Brien being a weird creep. Yeah.
What?
Search your mind. Search your mind. Bring your mind to a city. A dark city. A very dark city.
Was he the guy that's following him around in Dark City? Or is he
He's
the guy?
Mr. Hand. I'm
right,
Mr. Hand.
He's Mr. Hand from Dark City.
Yeah.
He's
not in a lot of
sequel to The
movies.
Crow.
Yeah, and that's like one of the weird movies that he's in. Like he's in enough stuff, but like that's one of the movies where he is a like marquee character, like an important character to the film. Like in Dungeons and Dragons, he's in the movie for like 5 minutes just to be like, go through my maze.
And really, he talks like this. He does talk like that.
Time is fleeting.
Because you imagine the Igor character be like, yes, master, but he doesn't really. He really only is like, yeah, we're his servants. He's not like, yes,
yeah,
master.
and they're kind of like we're his servants, but really we're his like co-pilot. I don't know what their like ranks were. At the end, he says, "I'm your new commander," but that implies that maybe he was lower in the ranks than Frank-N-Furter before this and has like taken over.
I thought he was undercover. Like he was like a cop kind of. Like the two of them were like space cops. Were undercover playing a role there. I don't know.
I mean, it's clear that Frank-N-Furter knows who they are, right? Because like when earlier in the movie when he's like, you know this earthling, Frank-N-Furter's like, shut up, man. And then he yells at Brad about the doctor being like his teacher being a guy who hunts UFOs or something. I can't remember the line exactly, but do you guys wish that they showed us the spaceship?
Well, the spaceship.
The castle
takes off at the end. That is the spaceship.
Yeah. Why is my brain not retaining a movie that I just watched?
That's another 50s movie, 50s Hollywood movies trope though. Aliens, like really old school aliens with weird lasers and stuff.
Yeah, they just threw in everything that they could reference from the B movie.
I can't get back to my notes. My computer's being a wonky wanker.
I've gone through most of my notes. We didn't really talk enough about Brad's bulge, but we did talk about my favorite line in the movie is when he says, "What charming undergarments you both have." It's so funny.
But they're wearing they're both wearing the most tidy whitey.
Yeah, it's the most boring underwear you've ever seen.
I will say that Janet's bra was doing wonders.
It's also funny that like Frank-N-Furter's costume that he wears throughout the majority of the movie is also just underwear.
But it's crazy. It's closer to like
underwear.
French prostitute.
Yeah, it's like lingerie. He's wearing lingerie.
Where am I at? Okay, we talked about. So there is a bit of a part of this movie where we do see that the place is wired for sound, wired for cameras. And they're kind of watching everything happen. When Frank-N-Furter goes in and makes whoopee with Brad and Janet individually, Magenta and Columbia are watching on, and they're being frisky with each other during that.
Right.
This movie read as a... I forget if I said this in the show or if I said this to Brian in the pre-show, but it kind of reads as like a weird 70s porno a little bit at times.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's probably by design.
Yeah.
They wanted it to feel that way because it is like 2 steps away from just being a porno.
Like take the music out and have like more nudity, and it's a stag what they called stag films in the 1970s.
But it's meant to be sexually provocative every step of the way, right? Like there is no wasted time in this movie in terms of like implicit sexuality. Like everything is sexual, and that's just like Frank-N-Furter's life, right? Like he's decided that like I want to only satisfy my carnal desires while I'm on Earth, and what else would I do while I'm here? And it's like, what was our purpose to be here again? I don't know. I'm just going to have fun and just go around and try and kiss as many people as I can.
Kiss as many
And-
girls and boys as possible.
And he succeeds.
I wrote a note that says "Touch It, Touch It, Touch It" is the horniest song ever. I think that's the
Yes.
song that
It's
Janet sings. Well,
to the point that it's kind of gross. Like the
Yeah.
lines are kind of disgusting. You're like, ugh.
Especially when you realize that she's saying it to like a newborn child. Yes.
Yeah. And also, I kind of am like, she betrayed Brad and then immediately went and did it again. Why didn't she go to Brad and have sex with Brad? Does she maybe just not like Brad at all and never did and just
Well,
only-
I think that's highlighting like that it was just society that was forcing her with Brad. I think.
Right.
Because she got the bouquet and she was with Brad, so they got to get married. You know,
But even
so-
like Brad's song at the beginning, it sort of implies that he also doesn't want to get married, right? Like he's just doing it because he has to.
yeah,
And I guess like we find out that it's probably because Brad's actually gay and he's just with Janet because he has to be because society told him to.
he's definitely got some repressed stuff.
Yeah, he literally has sex with a man in this movie. And then at the end is just like dressed in lingerie dancing around and he loves it. So unless there is some sort of sneaky space magic going on, he's just, maybe the magic does exist and all it does is just allow you to open up and remove inhibition to do what you actually want to do, kind of thing,
Mhm.
without
isn't that
regret.
a key line in it is like "Don't dream it, be it" or something like that?
Yeah,
So-
that's the last song that they're singing. He's like, don't even, yeah, exactly. Like, be what you want to be. And like, that's kind of the whole point of the movie. Except some people want to be a horrible pervert who pushes himself on people while they're trying to sleep.
Which is, it's like
He's just being what he wants to be, which
I
is
think
a
it's
criminal.
unfortunate that the character has so many problems. I think.
yeah.
It
Like I
is,
want to
but-
recommend this movie to people, but like, you might.
Just
That's
add
what
a
happened to
caveat,
me. Like
you know?
I was just watching it and I was like, oh no, oh god. And this is after they already say transvestite a bunch of times, which is it's old nomenclature. It's like the R word, kind of like where it was used at a point in a certain way and everybody was fine with it, and then it took on a new connotation. But that whole bit, and then realizing that the Rocky Horror himself was born moments ago and is now just in this horrible fray.
Yeah.
And you wonder how, like, you did get a sense of, like, when Eddie comes blasting out, that Frank-N-Furter immediately switches from being, like, horny about Rocky Horror to now sort of fearing this other character. He's like hiding, and he's like, and then gets an ice pick and fucking click-clacks him.
Yeah.
You know? So you got to wonder how old the minds of these other concubines are.
Yeah, it's weird, right? If you dwell on it too long, it becomes gross. But it's also, the brain and the body are not 7 years old. It's just the consciousness that is, right? Like he's just learning what's going on around him. But he had a life before, and that was the life of the biker Eddie before he became beautiful Rocky. Yeah. I had more to say about the outdated language of this movie, but I don't think we really need to talk about it that much because we're aware of it. And if you're recommending this movie to people, you just have to add the caveat of like, just remember it was made in a different era, and like if you can look past certain things, not accept them, but like, you don't need to sit there and be like, "Bah, this movie's horrible. It should be banned from cinemas." Just remember that language has changed, and if they were to make this movie today, they would probably just change the lyrics to something different.
They would change the lyrics. They'd cut some scenes. They might. I didn't listen
or
to
change
it.
them slightly.
I didn't listen to it, but I think there's a song that they cut in the movie that's in the stage play. I don't know too much. Do you know anything about that?
What?
About the cut song?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not familiar with the stage play. I haven't seen it, but
Okay.
I would like to because it seems like it would be a fun one to go see live.
Let me see if I can get a quick. See if I can find out quickly what the cut song is.
Also, like, doesn't transvestite mean something different? It doesn't mean trans person because a trans person is like when you.
Transvestite is like cross-dresser essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like somebody who just
Yeah,
wears different
yeah.
clothes, the clothes
Yeah.
of the opposite sex or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Which is like nowadays, that's just like people do that because they want to, and it's fine.
It's
There's no real name for it. It's just
I don't think
wearing
it's
clothes.
I don't think it's quite drag queen, but I think it's a derogatory term for someone who just like prefers wearing women's clothing. I think.
Right.
There's a deleted scene from the movie.
Oh.
Apparently between Brad and Riff Raff have sex. Weird.
Yeah.
This might require a little bit more.
Go Riff Raff. As long as it was consensual. I don't know. Riff Raff seems like he might be even worse than Frank-N-Furter. Just sneak up on you. Yeah.
Long rumored to be a deleted scene from the 1975 film, which did have a Riff and Brad sex scene. This video clip was shown at Rocky festivals for decades, and is most likely a fabrication concocted for a Rocky Con in 2001. And then there's like a video, and you can hear what's happening here a little bit. I won't see if I can. So what I'm seeing is
riveting content.
No, I know. I'm just gonna kind of describe what I'm seeing quickly. It's the actors.
It's like you're watching a snuff film.
You should see the way that it looks. It looks super grainy and like you can't really see what's going on. I think it's just might be fake. I don't know. At any rate, that's a rumor. That's not canon, kids.
Oh well.
Oh well.
Brian, do you know what this sword of
Damocles
is?
So it's like a sword that was held by a single thread that was designed to kill the person as soon as, like, I think it was, I don't know what the condition was, but it was essentially a thin thread that held the sword, and if they broke this condition, the sword would kill them.
You got too horny.
For some reason, I feel like it was like it falls when you reach power, like you get too powerful and then it falls or something like that.
I thought it was more like a lie or something
right.
Like some moral thing.
I don't want to be that guy, but there's this sort of Damocles in multiple Final Fantasy games. Moving on.
Oh, whoa! It's also a head-mounted tracking system that was created in the 1960s for the military. Interesting. Anyway, you're correct. It's dissatisfaction level. Yeah, it's basically like if you reach a point where your delights are taking over too much, it'll fall on you or something like that.
That's awesome.
Anyway, cool. That actually makes more sense now. He keeps singing about it. I'm like, why? What is this sword of Damocles that Rocky keeps referring to? Brian will probably know. He's on the podcast. I won't look it up, and I'll see if he knows.
It's the three-pronged laser beam at the end that looks like a trident.
Yeah.
Although he was able to survive that for so many shots.
Yeah, he was impervious to trident lasers.
We glossed over. I wanted to. Another practical effect I really enjoyed was where Everett's getting pulled up to the lab.
Right.
He pulls them up to the lab. Then they use a Medusa ray on all of them, and then Columbia stands up for herself, and then she gets blasted with the beam, and we get these great like Statue of David statues of everybody in the movie.
The statues are cool.
Yeah. I like they had to like. I wonder if they body molded them because they looked like them, right?
Maybe it seemed like a cast for sure. Like it didn't seem like somebody actually carved them, because that would have been probably very expensive.
Yeah.
And this movie, I don't think had a huge budget.
No, it was low budget.
Yeah, 1.4 million. That is
wow. Crazy
low. That's
and
like
it's the longest continually running film ever. Like, because you can still go today to theaters.
That's true. I didn't actually consider that, because they do it every. I think there's theaters that do it every month. Like, we can probably find tickets for this month if we wanted to go see it.
Weirdly enough, since I've lived in Toronto, I haven't really been like we keep our ear to the ground about musicals. I haven't really seen the Rocky Horror Picture Show like large production on Queen Street. I would like to see like a Stratford Festival version of this, like I was saying about Tommy.
Oh, that would be interesting.
Like a bit like a smaller group, smaller troupe take like does. Brian, if I've told you this directly, or if you've heard me tell it on the show, stop me. But I saw Chicago and it was funny. That's as much as I'll say because I've told this story now 3 weeks in a row. But a Rocky Horror that's like over the top, like even funnier than even how funny it already is, with the implication that you can do audience participation if you want. Maybe, I'd like to actually see it both ways. I'd like to see it like the narrator be like, we're not doing audience participation for this, and just see it, and then go to a special audience participation version. Like
I think this production in particular is designed in a way that when they plan for it, right? Where they're like, we're gonna put this show on, and we know that people are gonna come to the show and scream shit from the audience, so we just have to be prepared for that. Like, even if they were like, don't yell stuff, people would probably still yell stuff. Some guy would have a bag of bread and be like, what do you mean I can't throw the bread? I brought the bread.
I was going through the things a little bit more, and there's just so many that I couldn't really line it up as
I've
well.
never gone, but I would like to, because I've been floating the idea with friends since I was like 20. And no one ever wanted to go because all my straight friends suck. But now that I have sort of like a bubble of people who are like-minded and interested in the same things, it might be easier to convince the D&D group to go, for example.
Yeah, or like I would go to that. Madison would be down for that. Like
like I said, we could probably find it pretty easily, but we should also plan for Neil Breen. This is stuff we can talk about off mic, but I really want to go see the Neil Breen.
We have about 15 minutes left, so let's kind of run down the ending of the movie here, I guess. So I wrote down dinner time with the freaks. They sing a song there, and then Frank-N-Furter gets frustrated and pulls the tablecloth off to reveal that mangled Eddie is underneath in a coffin with a glass top, and it's sort of everybody like confirms their horrible suspicion that they were eating him. There's the Columbia sings that song about Eddie being the bad boy during this part, and then Frank just straight up chases Janet all over
the whole house, the whole castle. It's
and
wild.
Then
and he slaps her.
He slaps the shit out of her. And then that's when he brings them all, they all funnel back up to the lab, and they walk onto this slab that is like the most alien technology. But Dr. Everett he works for the government. He used to be like Brad's high school fucking teacher or something. High school.
It's so weird. And I'm like, what? It's like,
now
what is the point of these two knowing each other?
Now he works for government, and in government they're trying to develop technology somehow involved with UFOs or something.
Yeah.
But this technology that it makes you stuck, like you stand on it and like there's some sort of magnetic thing that happens that it makes you stuck.
He briefly explains it and you're like, okay.
No. I think out loud I went, nope.
I think I went, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I don't care.
In that moment, it's revealed that Dr. Everett's kind of like, well, we've been working. So you have the technology we've been working on at government.
Yeah, forever, but he's perfected it.
This is just a wasted person just like writing fucking dialogue in between amazing songs.
Yeah, drunk, being like, I don't know, who fucking cares?
I don't know, let's give the people some exposition for once.
This scientist will say some shit as to why their feet are stuck. Do I have a song in me about it? Nah, we don't need to write a song about
the
that.
Medusa laser.
Yeah. Right after we get like the reveal that not only is Dr. Frank-N-Furter a problematic person in terms of his methods to getting people of seduction, he is the most selfish prick who, he'll go bone your boyfriend and your girlfriend, and then if you even remotely go near his new creation, he throws a temper tantrum. It's like, what the fuck, it's my toy. and he doesn't want anybody else playing with his toys, but he will steal yours and play with them all night.
True.
What a
Exactly
prick.
true. In fact,
Yeah.
it's weird. Like we're getting to that point, but like it's weird that they make him like sympathetic in those last moments. So much like, not unlike the ending of Repo, the genetic opera, Frank-N-Furter brings, I guess this part of it is completely different, but Frank-N-Furter brings the statues of all the characters. He puts lingerie on all of them, the same lingerie he wears, they wear.
It's like a uniform.
Yeah, paints their face up in like really, really eclectic face paint. And
Yeah, it's
then
weird, sort of almost reminiscent of like the masks that represent like drama.
he puts Juggalo paint on all of them.
Sure. Yeah.
He makes a little mini gathering of the Juggalos, and brings them alive back to life one by one, and they kind of sing parts of the song that all sound like reminiscent of lyrics Frank-N-Furter would sing theirself. Is what it,
Yeah, it's
is
almost
what I
like
drew from it.
he's cloned himself a
Yeah.
bunch of times, and like they're all the different facets of like who he is, and who he wants everyone to be like him because he's the best, and he probably wants to have sex with himself. So he's like, dress up like me so I can kiss you.
So this, I'm not going to play the song because we got DCMA'd for it. But the Home Alone of it all, I would say, is when they get to the house, because it's a series of events that from
I would
then
say
on.
the minute the beat drops for Time Warp
Yeah.
is when the movie starts for me. The minute it's like time is
Brian,
fleeting. I'm like, oh, here we go.
You know what the Home Alone of it all is, right? Come on, you're a fucking fan of the show. The Home Alone of it all, for those that don't know, I'm going to just have to say it every episode probably, but in the movie Home Alone, when Kevin McAllister slaps down the blueprint and he's getting ready for the that's what everybody came to see. Everybody came to see the wet bandits get their comeuppance. And various movies have various degrees of this. Sometimes we don't get it. Sometimes the whole movie is it. Sometimes it's just basically the third act. I feel like the action movies next month are going to be like, it's going to be when Rambo fucking putting all the fucking tools on. Yeah. But yeah, I think we can agree that it's when the Time Warp plays, when they get to the place and everything starts getting fucking weird.
Unless you have a different one, Brian.
No, I agree with that. But going back to that final scene where he's making them all do the same thing or whatever, I think that's kind of weird. So we take them out of these societal expectations and we put them into new societal expectations, and we want them to conform to that, which is not their own things. It's just a different way of doing things. I don't know.
I think that's why what's her name? Columbia has such a rough time with it, right? She hates that he killed Eddie, and Eddie was vehemently different than what Frank-N-Furter wants. But so is she, right? And so she's she tells him like, I loved you, like I was in love with you, but you're so shitty. And you're like, now you're doing exactly what the world has done to these people, but you're doing it to them as well.
Eddie,
right?
like Brad and Janet represent like the squares, but they're very easily corrupted because they're so like set in these societal norms, religion, right? And but Eddie represents being literally like, he's his own free spirit. He represents heterosexuality in a lot of ways, but he also represents like being against everything, like, just, you know what I mean? He's the spirit of like, a biker. He's got the spirit.
He doesn't even like teddy bears as a child.
Yeah. I knew he was going to be bad when I pulled his teddy bear away, or whatever fucking Dr. Everett says. So
he didn't like his teddy bear.
So Frank-N-Furter obviously hates the guy who wants the girlfriend, and the biker character who just is free and is riding his motorcycle around, is fully free of anybody else's
he doesn't
control.
like it. He doesn't like that he can't control him. Frank-N-Furter just wants to have slaves, essentially. And
I think that's ultimately what causes the space cops or whoever they are to like say, enough's enough. You've gone too far. I think
we have to kill you now.
Yeah.
We're going back to Transylvania. Sorry, I think you meant You thought that we were all going, but no, you're staying here and you're gonna die. We're gonna kill you now with this lightning gun. There's part of me that loves that thing so much, the lightning gun, but I I hate the effect. But it's like, I get it. It's of the era. It's a low budget movie. Like, imagine they had some crazy like super effect there. Like they saved all their money and did something crazy with it.
We're coming around to the point where this shit's going to be 50 years old, and they're going to want to.
That's true.
They're going to start remaking it.
They already did. I told you they remade it while I was working at Casa Loma.
No, I mean like remake the movie.
There is also like a
It's
made-for-TV movie as well.
Oh,
I think that's what it was.
Is that the word? That's
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, they were filming it while I was working there, so I saw some of the actors in their costumes.
Sorry, I thought you meant that Casa Loma had like, since it's in a castle, they just were able to do some sort of live.
I think they just filmed it because it's a castle and they needed a castle. Like, let's film in Casa Loma.
But I thought it was like, they do that horror event every year where you can just walk through a haunted house. I thought it was like a Rocky Horror thing where you go to the different rooms and see different scenes, which also would be a cool experience. This story.
Yeah.
The narrator is
Nick
like a
D.
tour
Donato.
guide, takes you from room to room, and you experience different parts of the story. That'd be fun. So yeah,
Cool.
basically they all have an orgy in a pool, and then they show up and reveal they're aliens, and they shoot Frank-N-Furter dead, and Rocky Horror is now full like Beast Man, like he's just fully reverted to like, and climbs up a radio tower with him, not unlike King Kong carries, the damsel in distress up the Empire State Building. I think it's a radio tower, but it's not the Empire State Building, but it's that like Radio City thing I was talking about at the beginning. And then it falls over immediately, and they fall in the pool and die. I guess Frank-N-Furter double dies. And then they're
dead.
They basically like, where we're going to return to our planet where we can dance and sing and be merry. And all the freaks leave.
And they describe their planet as being bathed in moons, which I'm like, what does that mean? Like, does it just have a lot of moons? Like,
And it also sounded like it didn't get much sun. Like it was all reflected from the moons.
Yeah.
From the moons, yeah. Maybe.
Sounds like a disco club.
Yeah.
Nighttime disco
I want to
club.
see what Planet Transsexual looks like, because it sounds like it looks pretty cool.
It's probably dope.
Maybe I should draw it.
And then we kind of get like a mixed. Got a mixed feeling of the very end. So we get a like really cheesy, like the ship, the castle's taking off, and we see them escape. But the last scene we actually see is Janet, Brad, and the doctor laying on the ground. And I felt like it was implying that they just died under the exhaust of the.
No, they
spaceship.
say something? I feel like they say something.
I thought they were going like, but maybe you could.
No,
be...
I feel like they had a couple lines. I forget what they say, but I feel like they had a couple lines. I didn't view them as dead.
Okay, that's valid. I like.
Yeah, I never thought they died either, but it was just in my brain that they're not dead. I didn't it wasn't making a decision viewing.
It would be weird if none of the good guys win at all.
I mean, there's
But I
no
guess,
good
like,
guys in
there's
this
no good
movie.
guys
Everyone's
in this
bad in this movie.
Yeah, who would be the good guy? I don't know. I think the space cops are the closest to the good guy.
Yeah, they're kind of the heroes.
I guess just the nameless freaks.
I think those are Transylvanians. I think they went back with them. I think they're in the ship.
Oh, Cass just messaged me.
Columbia could be the good guy.
Yeah,
I
Columbia
guess,
was pretty good, but she gets murdered pretty hard.
She's the voice of reason, yeah, and she gets silenced.
Cass just
by accident.
Messaged me and said, watching the podcast, there's an extra song in the UK version of the movie where they climb out of the rubble.
Oh.
Which I'd like to track down. Thank you, Cass, friend of the show.
Thank you. Full of facts.
If we're doing musical episodes, she's the honorary go-to.
She's her local expert.
Yeah. But with that, we sort of come to the end of the movie. I think we did a good job at covering most things. Did you guys have any additional notes that you wanted to present?
I had a question just about the art. So we open up with an art piece. We open up with American Gothic. And then when we go to the castle, it's a lot of Renaissance paintings. There's the Mona Lisa, there's David, there's the Sistine Chapel. I'm just wondering what's going on with all the art.
Yeah,
tell
it
you.
almost feels like I mean, if
it's-
you have an
it's-
answer,
It's
go
well,
ahead.
I don't have an answer.
Hold on a second.
Jason's gonna do something.
No,
Oh no!
run! He's got his theories. They're all so terrible. It's so comically long. It's so comically long.
It goes
I
on
love
for
it.
15 more minutes.
It goes on for 25 more minutes. It's the same It's the same length of an episode of Full House. No, it's a dumb theory. Just that all these paintings are the actual paintings that exist in the world, and they've all been collected in this spaceship as part of their mission to Earth.
Oh, so you think it's like they're art thieves as well?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, there's probably something more to it. It could even be that the writers, Richard O'Brien and Jim something Chardot, Jim Chardot, no
Jim
Mister
Chart.
accent on the dough, Sharman. It could be that they were looking at paintings and were like, let's try and theme each song off of a painting, and looked at the paintings and was like, well, what is it? How does this make us feel? What are we trying to represent here? So like American Gothic is classically known as a painting that infuriated both middle America and sort of like the highbrow people from the cities, as well as like delighted an equal amount of people from both those areas, because both sides thought they're making fun of us, and then or they're like, oh, they think we're stupid. And then like I think the artist would go around and do discussions or lectures for the people in the city, and he'd be like, yeah, the country folk, they suck, they're so stupid. And then he would go to the middle America and be dressed as like a farmer and be like, people in the city don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And he was just like playing both sides like a psychopath, which is so funny. But it also is playing into like these people think that they need to be part of something, but they really don't, and it's kind of like has that same sort of vibe to it. But yeah, I don't really know what that's the only one that I can think of, and it's so clearly being homaged by the people dressed up as the people from the painting as well.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Like
I wonder if we
go back and watch it, we see somebody that's like vaguely dressed up like Mona Lisa now. Or something, you know what I mean? Like this. So the one last thing I wanted to mention is the concept of the Easter egg. I'm pretty sure has been rumored to come from this, because this movie has literal Easter eggs. All like the cast put literal Easter eggs to have an Easter egg hunt through this.
And they just didn't find them.
But
all,
you can find actual Easter eggs.
You can find actual Easter, like if you look at Frank-N-Furter's throne at the beginning, there's Easter eggs underneath it. I don't know if the concept of Easter eggs was invented before this, because a lot of people attribute the original Easter egg to be from an Atari game. But then that term was sort of coined out of that by finding something. It's like finding an Easter egg, and then I think the Rocky Horror Picture Show cast of the play started planting eggs around. Anyway, I don't know.
Had the Atari thing already happened when the play was?
Well, I don't know the original. Let me see if I can quickly get I'll just look up origin.
Yeah,
Easter
I mean,
egg.
the origin of the video game you're referring to came out in 1980.
That's true too, right? It's Adventure or whatever for the Atari.
Yeah,
So
so
maybe they were referencing the Easter eggs from Rocky Horror Picture. That's how it got its name. Because it didn't have
it
Easter eggs.
could be, because it could be the thing where he's like, yeah, remember when you were watching and looking for Easter eggs in Rocky Horror? It's like, well, what if we do that in a video game? So it's like a marriage. They both came up with it.
Well, that's
They worked
interesting
together.
too, because it's widely considered that Steve Wright, director of software for Atari, who put it in that game Adventure, is the originator. But this movie has literal. The term Easter egg comes from the Rocky Horror Picture Show from on Reddit. So there's a debate whether it comes from this or from Adventure for the Atari, and this predates that by 5 years. So
It's gonna start some sort of war,
cracked
some
it.
egg war.
We cracked the egg mystery. See what I did there? So I have one more song I need to play before we get into our final thoughts. It's going to be anticlimactic, and I apologize, but this is another one that I like.
That's when they said the name of the movie in the movie.
Whoa, they did?
They didn't.
Oh no!
Sorry, I just wanted to hear that. But something I learned and why I think it's valuable to play that song, not only because it rules, but I didn't know that there was a character in this movie called Rocky Horror until I watched it literally yesterday. Mm-hmm. And this movie came out in 1975. So I was able to... There's this rare thing that happens on our podcast sometimes where a spoiler is kept from me for forever. And I somehow didn't know there was a character in this fucking movie called Rocky Horror.
I mean, you also didn't know that they were aliens, and that's like a pretty big twist.
That's a
You're like, wait, did they just say they're aliens? Hold on.
So, with that, if you guys don't have any more notes, I'm going to take us to our final segment of the show. How's that sound, y'all?
I have one note, and that is that the power knife and everybody having mismatched cups is so funny and also indicative of the fact that they clearly don't know how human culture works. Yeah. It's like they are aliens. They either don't care, they're poor, or they just don't get it. They're like, we have to drink out of these vessels, right? We don't just slurp it off the ground like we do on Transylvania.
On Transylvania? All right.
Yeah, it's funny. I like it. Part of me is like, was that a budgetary thing, or was it just because they...
It's time for our final thoughts.
Fantastic. So, that's a really good point too, because like, there's just... I want to watch this now under the guise of knowing all these twists, knowing all these weird little things, and I feel like it's one of those movies where things open up for you. With that said, that felt like a bit of a final thought, so I'm glad that I put it on the other side of the song. Gotta qualify everything, Steve. Gotta make it, you know, I like continuity, as you know, to a fault in some cases. I paid $100 for the title of this show. Brian, why don't you go first and give us your final thoughts, and then hit us with maybe a rating out of a number or a fun rating, and then we do a little thing called What Went Well Even Better, and just that's a little critique. What did you like? Maybe what did you don't like?
What did you don't like about it?
Overall, I think it's a really good film. I think it's really about accepting people for who they are, and accepting yourself if you have differences. And I think that's why it's become such a cult following. Is just it's about the people on the fringes of society having a place to go and be themselves. I really like that. I just wish, if I was to critique it a bit, I just wish some of the older, I don't know, sexual advances and some of the stuff is just dated. And I wish that wasn't in the film, or they tweaked it so it still had the humor but not the ickiness of it. And I think that's how I feel about it. And my rating is probably a 4 out of 5. I do recommend the film, just with the caveat that there are some issues with some of the behaviors of the characters.
Yes.
And then what went well, and something that you could improve upon even better.
I think that he just said that.
Oh, okay. That was.
I did it all in one. Did I separate it out for you?
Yeah.
That was sort of your. Okay, that's great. Thank you, Brian. Steve.
Hi, it's me, Steve. I love this movie. I've always loved this movie. The first time watching it, it freaked me out because of how crazy it is, and how much it resonated with me. And I was like, is there something wrong with me that I love this movie so much? I hold it in a special place in my movie collection, like my mental movie collection of being one of the best movies ever made for me. It's, you know, not everyone's going to agree with me on that, and that's fine. Like what you said, Brian, the outdated, misogyny from a man who is ultimately very feminine it's off-putting, and the outdated terminology is a little bit off-putting, and just like, you know, the movie is all about sex, but there are certain parts that get into what we would now consider to be terrible crimes. And if we could change that, maybe, but I do think it's also important that it is in there, and I don't think that removing it would be a good idea. I think that ultimately you want to see how disgusting Frank-N-Furter is, so that the fact that you do feel something for him at the end is important. But I do also think that the queer coding in cinema for villains has been around forever, and this is it. He's the villain, and he's very gay, and it's vilifying gay people, and that's been happening forever. And it needs to stop now, but I don't think that we need to edit history. I think that this is an important movie in film history, and especially in the musical genre, and it has impact in theater. And I think that editing, like if you're doing new versions of these things, sure, change it all you want, but I don't think that you need to go back and change the original, because there's a reason that everybody likes it so much, and that it's been around for so long, and that it's still playing in theaters every month in cities all over the world. That's not to say that I agree with any of his actions. I think they're terrible, and they are crimes, and if he was a real person, he should go to jail. But yeah, I love this movie. It helped me through a lot of difficult stuff in my own life as well, just understanding who I am and how I need to be okay with who I am and all that kind of stuff. And I don't want to get too into it because it's personal, and you don't know me. You're not my friend. don't think you can get inside my head, man. I'm gonna have a mental breakdown if I don't stop myself.
Brian, is he okay?
No, I'm not. I'm turning into a werewolf, just like Columbia.
You were
and
the
werewolf
doctor all along.
I was the werewolf the whole time. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I could continue gushing about this movie forever, but I'll stop myself now and say I love it. It's great. The rating I give it is it's in the lab on the slab. You'll have to follow me there to see it. That's my rating.
And I assume it's like a what went well, everything, and even better, nothing.
Well, I mean, even better, like it's just the stuff that's problematic. I'm not saying to remove it. I'm just saying that like it's bad that it's in there, but it's in there, and we have to live with it. Maybe I would like to see what that climbing out of the rubble song would be. Maybe that's what I would add. Mm-hmm. I want to see what they're singing about as the rocket ship flies away. Would they go back to their boring musical style from the beginning, or are they new, changed people? We'll never know.
Mm-hmm. Cool, that's great. I don't know why, but I thought like in my head you were gonna be like ugh, but it makes total sense that you've loved this movie forever. I don't know why. I just sometimes you dislike movies I think you're gonna love, and hate movies, or love movies I think you're gonna hate. So this is more in line.
Yeah, I guess I'm hard to track down.
You're hard to track
my
down.
Opinion.
Okay.
But if you think about it for 2 seconds and who I am, yeah, you're like, oh yeah, this makes sense. It makes this weird shit.
I think it was more related to your like musicals give you the ick a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, that's just I liked weird shit though. Like there's a reason that I liked all the movies we've done so far, and that's because they're all weird. They're all so weird.
I don't like Mania Mayhem.
Like something like Hamilton, I'm like, I don't give a fuck about this. I know everybody loves it, but I don't care. I don't give a shit about this. It's embarrassing to me to watch. I don't like it.
It is
I'm very aware that they're singing right now. People don't do this.
Okay. Thank you, Steve.
No problem.
You guys sort of illuminated how I feel about the movie as well. I basically said besides the like weird, problematic, rapey bits and the use of the word transvestite, I really enjoyed those. It's fucking so good from start to end, and I knowing all the songs for a musical can really amplify watching it for the first time. Like with Hamilton, I didn't know any of the songs. I was saving them, but they all going to see it again. I would just be goosebumps the whole time, So the next time I watch this, that's probably what's going to happen with me. It has great songs and great characters, and it doesn't drag. It gets kind of horny around the middle. Oh my fucking! It does get kind of horny around the middle. But the whole thing, I think,
The
is
middle? You say the middle?
It gets
Come
horny
on.
pretty much. Off
It's
the
horny
bat.
right when they enter that house.
Yeah. But the whole thing, I think, is an exploration of sexuality. I'm not in love. I'm now in love with Susan Sarandon. Also.
Oh, interesting. That
Yeah.
this is the movie that did it for you.
I don't know. I hadn't really seen her. I hadn't really seen her like in her 20s before. I didn't realize. But her daughter is like. Anyway.
All right. Jesus Christ.
Sorry.
We just spent 2 hours talking about how important this movie is for the queer community, and you're over there drooling about Susan Sarandon.
Okay.
Pervert.
I give this movie.
Put him in jail.
Put me in jail for sex crimes. Nope. Don't. Okay. Don't do that, please.
Oh man, I think I hear another siren.
The sirens are coming.
And it's coming from your mic this time.
I give this movie a 3.7 out of 5. I think I would agree more with, like, I think I wanted to give it a 4, but I wanted to seem like, I gotta give it a little bit of a critique because of those bad parts. But there are no real bad parts in this movie except for the things we talked about that are, like, everything else fires on all cylinders. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the movie is meant to be shocking.
Yeah.
And it's meant to make you uncomfortable and to disturb you. And, like, for a mainstream-minded person, this movie is meant to be shocking. So
I give
the fact that you're anyway. Sorry, go ahead.
The fact that you're, I give
The fact
this,
that you're so stupid about
you're
it.
You're going to give me a life lesson and a talking to. I give this movie a sexual romp through a spooky castle where a trans woman sings and dances and everybody has a great time until they don't. What went well? The music is all excellent. The music is just fucking literal classics. And even better, a modern retelling of this, like now, like think of the movie, the It movies. Like a modern...
We should maybe watch the new one just to see.
I want to see.
Change,
I'm curious about it now.
Yeah.
They lose the scenes with. What did I mean by this? A modern retelling of this could lose the weird scenes with Frank in a wig. Oh, where he puts on the wigs of Brad and Janet.
Yeah.
I also wanted
the bad part.
The bad part. I also wanted the bad touch. I also wanted to explore the sci-fi elements a little bit more. Like, imagine a modern retelling of this, where since we know the twist, just at the beginning we get like alien ships and stuff. You know what I mean? Like,
it would be interesting if they played around with it a little bit more and made the implications more subtle, but more of them, rather than them just straight up being like, this Earthling, being like, he's hunting you.
I kind of love that random twist at the end. It's kind of like a weird quirky. I don't know.
Maybe
it is fun. Yeah.
Maybe make the horror stuff, like put some actual scares in it, like in some actual gross stuff too, like not just like.
Yeah, I mean the cannibalism scene could have been a lot grosser.
Yeah.
Could have been like that. What's that movie we watched, Brian? The one with all the pus and the ooze and with
Bad
Cam
Taste?
and Ryan.
Yeah.
Dead Alive, I think is what
Or
it's
Dead
called.
Alive, yeah.
Yeah.
Peter Jackson
Could have been like that.
Peter Jackson used to make some real fucking weird shit in the 80s.
Yep. I mean, his special effects are the reason he got to do the Lord of the Rings.
True.
That's right.
True. So I think with that, I'd like to say thank you, Brian. Thank you for coming on our podcast where we talk about various movies. We talk about different things. I'm definitely not just trying to find the soundboard with the applause or anything. Brian, thank you.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for coming by.
Brian, do you have anything that you want to plug?
No. What I want to plug is, hey, did you see this one?
Hey!
Great podcast.
You're plugging us on our show. That's very meta of you.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. In addition to that, I want to, as a kind of a system note, we have some cool things coming. We got some new artwork. We got some new ideas. Next week is going to be kind of a milestone in a few ways, and it's a great movie. Come on by for The Pick of Destiny, Tenacious D and The Pick of Destiny.
And another serving of meatloaf.
And another serving of meatloaf. And I don't want to say who's going to be on the show here in case something happens.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a big one. This is episode 101. We made it over the hump.
We're in the triple digits, folks.
We're now in our second season.
Yeah, we did a 99 episode season.
Yeah, well, 100 episodes because it was our season premiere and our season finale last week, episode 100. So you're right. We're both right. Everybody's right. And with that, for Steve, no, I'm kidding. I'm fully joking. I just have to ask a question I ask each and every week, and that's, hey, did you see this one?
I don't say it anymore. We changed it up. But I appreciate the jumping on it so
Brian,
quickly. We didn't even have to prompt you.
Yeah, usually our guests are like, I'm not doing that. But Brian, do you want to hit us with one more? Hey, did you see this one to end out the show?
Another one? I thought we just finished.
No, it's on the thanks for watching screen now.
This is where we all try and say the funniest thing anyone ever said.
Well, I haven't prepared for this.
Well, just say, hey, did you see this one?
We're all saying, hey, did you see this
No,
one?
you say it.
Just me.
Listen, guys, I'd hate to be the one to say this,
did you
but
see this one?
time is fleeting.